So the NBA got crazy. It's the craziest it's been in a while. I got a lot of things to talk about. Let's start. And first, let's talk about all these damn deals. Like Jesus Christ, there was so much money spent, and we have to get into it. Tobias Harris, 2 years, 52 million. We got Tyrese Maxey, like 4 years. No, I think it was 5 years, 205 million. Derek White, 4 years, 126 million, basically. Jason Tatum, 5 years, 315 million. Those deals right there are very life changing. First, we have to talk about Philly. Philly completely redid their roster. They got Paul George on like a 4 year, $212 million deal, if I'm not mistaken. Right? Then they got Tyrese Maxey on like a 5 year, $205 million deal. And they got rid of Tobias Harris, who got signed to Detroit for $52 million for 2 years. Philly now has basically a new look. I hope that they bring back DeAnthony Melton because they do not look amazing. And those deals really are setting the tone. The Celtics are keeping all of their guys, which they have under contract next season. Obviously, they're willing to pay the luxury tax. And after the TV deal, the Celtics should actually be pretty okay. Then we have other teams like New York, which obviously got Mikal Bridges, but then they were not able to sign Isaiah Hartenstein as he went to OKC for 3 years, 87 million. OKC has actually been doing a lot of trades, and they've kept themselves in the circle basically for one of the better team to be one of the better teams this offseason. Then we had a bunch more, deals when it comes to a team like the Pistons that we were talking about. We have Cade, which signed 5 years, 226 million. This one looks more of a deal just to keep him around. He's been good enough to call your guy, but he hasn't been good enough to really show you anything good. But you could also attribute that to the fact that he has had the worst teams in NBA history around him. Like, literally, his team is historically bad. And he's averaging good numbers, so honestly, Cade has earned his money. I don't think that he's the best player, but I definitely think that he's functional, right? Chris Paul signed to the Spurs. I'm pretty sure he's gonna get paid like $9 million a year, and I'm pretty sure he's on a 1 year deal. Andre Drummond also went to Philly. He went for 2 years, $10 million. And a few of the other deals include like KCP to Orlando for 3 years, 3 years, 66 million, which means that KCP is making 22 million a year, which is kind of crazy. The Clippers are signing Derrick Jones Jr. to a 3 year, $30 million deal, which is honestly crazy considering that happened just because of these playoffs. And then obviously you have the Klay deal for 3 years, 50 million, which completely has shaken up the league as he's going to Dallas to basically just be the other piece which they were looking for. Apart from this, a few of the other signings which took place, I'm going to go in order. The Kings signed back Alex Len. The Clippers signed back James Harden on 2 year, $70 million deal. Honestly, I do feel like he earned this contract through how he played last season in the playoffs. And James Harden, they need him around now because since Paul George left, they really have nobody for Kawhi. And they have nobody for the new stadium. So for right now, until the Clippers can look for some new depth, they need to be able to keep it together. Cam Reddish signed with the Lakers for 2.5 million. I imagine this is because of his shot, because he's a shooter, because JJ Redick is not the coach. The Bulls signed Torrey Craig to a minimum. Rashard Holmes signed a 2 year, $26 million deal with the Wizards, which is good for him, as the Wizards have signed a lot of centers now. They signed Jonas Valanciunas too to a 3 year, $30 million deal, which doesn't make sense. It's like you have Jordan Poole, you have Kyle Kuzma, and then now you want to have centers. I don't understand what they're trying to do. Maybe they're just trying to fill up cap space so that they can actually have a few years where they can be bad, but yeah, the Wizards are not cooking. The Suns signed Bol Bol, that's their biggest move, and this is where we get it more interesting. The Celtics re-signed Luke Cornett. The Bulls gave Patrick Williams 5-year, $90 million contract, which is crazy. Then Obi Toppin stays with the Pacers for 4 years, $60 million, which is really good. You know, Obi was loved by the Pacers, and he's been amazing for them. Royce O'Neal signed a 4-year, $44 million deal for the Suns. It makes sense. Royce O'Neal is their one good role player. Malik Monk signed 4 years, $78 million with the Kings. He deserves that, you know. And honestly, it's a cheaper contract for what he does for that team. The Nuggets signed DeAndre Jordan, and they want to sign Russell Westbrook. That's what reports say. Nick Claxton got a huge extension. He signed 4 years, $100 million with the Nets, which is good for him because now he gets to be on a bad team making a lot of money, so he can put up stats and get more contracts. Honestly, unless he wants to play like really winning basketball, he's going to make a lot of money. OG Anunoby got one of the biggest contracts of this entire offseason, as he got 5 years, $212.5 million. That man got the absolute bag, and honestly, I'm surprised that New York gave that much money to him when he's not even worth a fraction of that money, if we're being honest. Like, he's a good player, but that's like superstar level money. Like, Tyrese Maxey did not get that amount of money. And I just think that for OG to be getting $44 million a year, it's not worth it. You're not even paying Jalen Brunson that much. Pascal Siakam signed with the Pacers for 4 years, $190 million basically. I feel like this is worth it. Pascal Siakam deserves it. I'm surprised that he didn't get more money, but I'm sure that that's because they couldn't give it to him. And Pascal was amazing. The Emmanuel Quickley signed 5 years, $175 million. I'm really happy for Emmanuel Quickley because I think that him being on the right team at the right time helped them get that contract. He's a great player. No one can hate on him. Does he deserve that money? Honestly, he's been playing pretty well for Toronto. But if we're being honest, we have to let him get his bag. We have to let him live out his life because Toronto's not very good, and they need to give money to certain players so that their cap space can be filled, and the NBA doesn't like tax them or anything. The Celtics signed Neemias, get that to a multi-year deal with the Celtics. That doesn't change anything. Mason Plumlee was signed to a 1-year deal with the Suns, which in my opinion is huge as they now finally have a center which can go on their roster and play real minutes. Mason Plumlee is solid. Eric Gordon signed to the Sixers on a minimum. Chris Paul signed with the Spurs for $11 million. And Kevin Porter Jr. signed a 2-year deal with the Clippers. Apart from this, we have other big things that are happening, like LeBron hasn't opted into his contract yet. Obviously, we haven't spoken enough about this new Jason Tatum extension and what that means for Boston and how is that structured so that he doesn't ruin the team in the future. As now Tatum and Brown are both getting $60 million a year. And finally, we haven't really spoken on the NBA right now. Those are all the moves that happened. And I think that the NBA right now is in a point of serious contention. And I think that a lot of teams and a lot of players are just chasing money at this point. There's going to be a bubble of the NBA new TV deal, which is coming up. And I feel like a lot of teams are going to benefit from that bubble. And a lot of players are too. I feel like in that moment, a lot of teams are their cap space is magically going to rise. So when they can actually have more cap space, that means that they're going to be able to have better teams. And when they have better teams, then that means that their cap space is going to be higher. So that's where I feel like the Celtics are doing this. They are using a very cool trick so that the players that they have can be paid out like the way that they were in Golden State by one of those cap hits that happens when the NBA signs a new deal. It's the same thing the Warriors did with Kevin Durant, and that's how they kept their team together then. And it's the same thing the Celtics are doing now to keep their team together, as Jason Tatum just got his $315 million extension.